Hello.
Hey, Esperanza, how are you?
Very good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you for asking, and I appreciate you taking a little bit of time for us today.
My pleasure, of course.
Emily's D Plus Evolution new album, Tonight at the Republic, and one of the things that made me excited in getting to talk to you, Esperanza, was the story of how your mom gets some credit for noticing your ability to play work by Beethoven by ear on a piano when you were really young. My mom had a lot to do with me going into radio, so when I saw that, it was just one of the things I connected with you on. Tell me a little bit about that story.
I don't remember it. I don't remember that happening, but my mom seems to. I think it might have been a Bach exercise or prelude or invention. And I probably heard her playing it or heard somebody playing it a lot and was able to pick it up at the piano. And I feel like that's something that kids can often do because they haven't learned that music is supposed to be difficult yet. And we're still learning language by emulation. So um, music being one of my languages, I suppose, that's how I started experimenting with it by picking up things I'd heard and figuring out how to play them.
Yeah, it's kind of like the story of you. I guess it was like sitting underneath the piano. I guess it's something like what you were just saying. Your mom's like getting some sort of lessons, like guitar lessons or something. You're sitting
hmm
underneath the piano, and the same way you just described, I guess you're just being exposed to it, and then you're like, I'm going to go home and do this myself, sort of thing.
Yeah, which to me is why it's so crucial for young people to have the opportunity to be exposed to live music, to experience the sound of instruments in their midst or in real life with an earshot performing. It's really nourishing for the brain, and music is one of the languages of our species. We usually have our native tongue, and we have the languages that we can learn in school, et cetera, et cetera. But music really is a universal language, and we know now scientifically it's been proven that exposure to music and studying of music enhances children's ability to retain other kinds of information, the math, the languages, and the sciences. And I don't think that story about me picking up music as language is particularly special. I think it is a testament to how important music is for young people. I felt drawn to pursue music in my life, but I witnessed myself a natural magnetism that all kids feel towards instruments and towards making sounds on instruments. And now we know scientifically, if that's important to you, that it's good for them. So just a reminder for us citizens all over the country that music education is really, really important. And if you do have kids, if you can find the time, I know it can be hard if you work or if you're a single parent, but just finding a way to get kids out to hear live music is really, really good for their brains. It's good for all of our brains.
Yeah, that's the other flip side of it, true, is what you're saying is really that nurturing and that exposure. So, parents taking the time for a very, very young child, it's really part of the credit, is what you're saying, is that you had the ability, and all kids maybe have this ability, but the critical thing is having somebody put you in a place to be exposed to it at such a young age.
Yeah, I'm not even talking about ability. Maybe your kid doesn't have innate talent or something. I'm speaking generally, it's good for your brain. Like if you want your kids to do good in math and in reading and in writing, being exposed to music, engaging with music, having the opportunity to play instruments, to hear instruments, to touch instruments is good for us. It's good for the brain.
You sing in several languages. Do you speak in them as well?
I speak in Spanish and very bad Portuguese, but yes, I can communicate in those languages outside of music.
Oh, that's nice to have that ability. When
Mm.
I think of,
Well, it's not innate. I mean, I when I started listening to Brazilian music, it just seemed unfair that I couldn't understand what the words were saying. It was so powerful and impactful to me. I said, I have to go learn this language. And I happened to have a Brazilian boyfriend at the time, so I could practice with him and his family. And I went to the Berlitz Learning Center, and for 2 semesters while I was in Boston, took Portuguese. And got to use the music as a gateway into the language, and I'm really grateful for that. A lot of the lyrics that I've always been attracted to in the Brazilian music vernacular are really poetic and beautiful. It's I don't know if it has to do with the syntax of that language itself, but I find most of the lyrics, even in just a common popular song that everybody knows, has such a beautiful poetic characteristic about it.
Well, you'll certainly find there's quite a few people who do speak Portuguese here in the islands, and you mentioned Boston. You mentioned Boston, and there's a gigantic community there. I actually lived there for 14 years and went to Emerson right around the school from where you went to school. And I imagine you must have been a big Supreme Pizza fan going to Berkeley.
No, I didn't. I don't really eat food like that.
You didn't?
But I know where it is.
Yeah, that's a landmark place for people in Boston, right across the street from the campus there. But certainly you've had an impact on folks, and there's a real musical evolution. You can hear it on Emily's D+ evolution. And if you can, describe some of that recording process that went into the new album and things that really stick out to you as being important.
Oh, well, I didn't have a manager when I made it, and I think that really helped. I wasn't under the illusion that I could do more than what was immediately within my jurisdiction or under my hands, or a phone call that I had made, or a connection that I had set up. And I think that was a really important part of the process. I didn't have anybody breathing down my neck, and I also didn't have anybody there to quote-unquote support me, which is real, and I did have a lot of support from my manager, but this felt closer to me because I didn't have that infrastructural support while I was making it. The support came from the band, and it came from the awesome engineers and the beautiful studio space. And I also made it when I was on a hiatus, so I had time. I really had time to redo, reassess, rearrange the music as I lived with it before and between recording sessions.
How long had you been writing the stuff? Is the writing process something where you dedicate a specific period of time, or does it come out incrementally when you have ideas emerge?
I'm going to try that next time. I'm going to try that, dedicate a period of time to writing. I've never done that before. I'm usually doing so many different things that I'm squeezing in lyric writing and composition in the cracks of a tour. So the hiatus, I should clarify, was from touring with my own band. I was touring just as a bass player in a lot of people's bands that year. But the writing process for the project, which started first with just an understanding of who Emily was and the philosophy inside of the project, I suppose you could say, or her philosophy, started on October 17th, 2013. So I didn't sit down and start writing songs then, but a lot of the seeds for the music started then. And I got like an aural picture, A-U-R-A-L picture of the project. So then from October 2017 to September 2015, I was recording and writing and demoing and tweaking and things all related to the project as it is now. And obviously the music has changed a lot since we recorded it because we've been traveling and playing and tweaking and modifying. But this is my favorite record that I've made. It sounds the most like what I intended it to sound like, meaning it doesn't have to do with the aesthetic or the music per se, but when you get inspiration, it's like unfocused vision. It's like you're looking through glass that's really, really, really out of focus. To me, the process of writing, creating, rehearsing is finding the filters, finding a way to get that glass clear so you can show somebody what you intuited. And on this project, it feels the closest to what I intuited. Like I look at the album, I listen to the album, I say, yes, this record represents my inspiration, the initial inspiration. And I hope that from this record on, like that sets the precedent of always, 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 always going until the project represents the inspiration. Because to me, that's the gift of inspiration. It's our job as creators to show others what only we could see. That's the only reason that we need artists with all our narcissistic madness, is because only artists can take something invisible that doesn't exist, that is intangible, and just with their bodies and their brain, sometimes their voice, sometimes instruments, you create something out of nothing, literally. And I understand that better than I did before, I suppose. And with this album, the bar has been set, and I, from now on, will always, I will not rest until the final result reflects accurately the initial inspiration.
Well, with the kind of high bar that it sounds like you set for yourself, it's no wonder that you've attracted so many different kinds of people to become fans of your music. And certainly one of those people that really sticks out, especially here in Hawaii, where he was born, is the president, who ended up, I understand, selecting you to perform. It was his choice at that Nobel Peace Prize concert. I want to know how you found out that he had selected you, and any personal interactions you had with him that may sound interesting to people in the state where he's from.
Ooh, well, I don't really believe that he went, out of a list of anybody he could have and said, I'd like Esperanza Spalding. Probably what it was is, out of the list of who was actually available, I was a pick. And I am down with that, too. I don't care. I was there, and it was very magical. And his speech was really beautiful. It's really, really challenging, as you can imagine, to make a speech as you receive the Nobel Peace Prize as the president of a country that at that time was engaged in two unofficial wars, but engaged in combat. So he, I think, brilliantly handled that and spoke so eloquently about what the prize represented to him and about the state of U.S. military involvement overseas. I was really moved and impressed by that. And a funny little story that happened that I could tell from that event was, at one point, it was time for the guests to leave the event. So we were on the side, having just performed, and I started to leave the building. And apparently I misunderstood the cue. I left too soon or something. But we go into the foyer, and Secret Service comes up and says, nobody move. This room's on lockdown. Nobody can come in or out. So we stand against the wall, and then in waltzes the president and the first lady and the prime minister of Norway and his wife. And I felt so embarrassed, of course, because I didn't want to appear to be, trying to get close proximity. So I don't think I turned my face to the wall, but I made a point to try to make myself small and invisible.
Right.
And the president and the first lady came up and shook my hand and said, hello, thank you for the performance. Nice to meet you. And introduced me to the prime minister. And we had this lovely little spontaneous, genuine exchange. And to me, that was really revealing of their fundamental character as human beings. They really are warm and they extend themselves to others. And I felt grateful to see that, because there was no press there. There was nobody there that they had to impress. And they chose to come up and ease the awkwardness of this young woman who accidentally was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it was really encouraging. It was a sweet exchange.
That's a nice quality, too. That's a nice thing for people to do. Being nice to people is a great lesson I get out of that story. Thank you so much. It was great talking to you today, Esperanza.
Thank you, Dave.
And
Thank
appreciate
you so
the
much.
stories. Really fun. Have a great day.
Right on. See you later. Bye-bye.
Aloha.
Aloha. This is Esperanza Spalding, and you're listening to Dave Lawrence.